Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here. We've got troubles everyone. Hopefully that's back. Hopefully we're back and you can see. We were having technical issues earlier when Nancy and I first met, so stick with us. If for some reason that we can't control and the whole thing falls apart, everyone, we will come back next week, and Nancy's already put a hand up to say she's available to do that. So hopefully we'll be okay and the lag will start to fix itself up. Back to what I was saying. I think we're still okay. I'm just double checking. Yeah, I think we're okay. The Voice Essentials online course is still, there is still a discount that you can grab. If you haven't already signed up for your discount, there's still a 35% discount off the $99 regular retail price, I'm being told by Linda it's better, which is great. Thanks, Linda. And so if you want to sign up, don't miss out, because the 35% discount finishes on the 16th of February and then it drops to 25%. The 25% discount will be for 2 weeks, and then during March it's a 15% discount. All of the details are in the description section below this video, so make sure you check that out, and you can go and visit voiceessentials.com.au. Really wanted to just update you all on that. I'm just coming back over here. I do hope that everything's going a lot better now as far as the video goes. The technical issues that we have with this live thing. Anyway, look, I really do want to get to our guest straight away. So without further ado, let's do that. And all things being equal, the technical stuff will be a faint memory of the past, and we'll have our great discussion with Nancy coming right up after this.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hello, Nancy.
Hi, Dan. It's so great to be here.
It is so good to have you on the show. My very first guest for 2019. Thank you for... Yay! We organised this way back, November, was it? November, maybe December last year. And so thank you very much for being my first person onto the show. And I'm really excited about today's topic, because it is a topic that is very close to my heart, as far as the reason why I do not only my studio teaching, but why I put all the stuff online that we do. We're going to get to talking about the right to sing, that it's, as I often say, the birthright of every human being to sing. We're going to talk about that in a second, but before we do, I wonder if we can introduce you and just get us to let us know a little bit about who you are and how it is that you come to be a pretty well-known singing teacher. Certainly we have a lot of mutual friends online. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I've been living in the Seattle area for the last 25 years. And before that, New Mexico, which is kind of by Texas. And before that, the Midwest. I have always, I should say that 22 years ago, I was making up my business plan for being a voice teacher, and I had to decide my mission statement. And my mission statement was to be the best possible voice teacher that I could be, to help people achieve what they needed to achieve. Mm-hmm. And that's been my consistent... Oh, by the way, are we getting some weird echoes, or is it okay?
I can't hear any echoes.
Great.
At my
I'm getting
end.
funny sounds on my side, so I'll just ignore.
Maybe Linda can let me know in the Word doc. Linda, let me know if we've got any echoes. But let's continue.
Cool. All right. So that's been my driving thing all along. Now, in the beginning, I wondered, is this a compensatory thing? Am I saying that I want to be the best voice teacher for others because of something I can't do or something I'm not good at? But through the test of time now, I'm 100% certain that what I really care about is that every single person have the right and the opportunity to sing. And I'm super excited to talk to you more about that.
Yeah.
In that, vein, I've had the opportunity over the years to work with singers who have become Broadway stars, who have become Nashville stars, who become recording stars, and here, there, and the other. But honestly, the students who feed my soul, who make me the most excited, are the ones who start by not being able to match pitch, and they work hard, and they get to the point where they can sing anything, or at least sing something. And those people make me so proud.
No, that's, do you know what? That is so in keeping with my experience. I too have had the opportunity to teach people of a certain caliber, if you like. But the people that I love having in the studio are those people that come with this desire and passion to express themselves vocally. And it is an exciting thing. Apparently we're still getting some connection issues, and I'm looking at my end, everyone, and I honestly, I don't know what we can do about that. We're going to soldier on, because I think that it might just be some intermittent things that are going to happen as we go along. So let's persevere, everyone, and we'll go ahead with the discussion. Can I briefly, Nancy? Can I I want to say thank you. You sent me a range of books here, and the Singing 101 and the Teen Girls Singing Guide, and this little magic book, the Singer's Practice Journal. You is it wrong to use the word prolific with you, or you seem to write? You seem to write a lot.
I do really enjoy writing. I started writing for the American National Association of Teachers of Singing.
Yeah.
And I learned that I could really write, and there was an audience that was receptive. In 2005, I put out Singing 101 CD set, where people could listen to the audio in their car and have sing-along tracks with a rock backtrack.
Okay.
And it was really cheesy MIDI. And actually, you can still hear this cheesy MIDI on nancybos.net. But
and everyone, you can get to that via the link in the description section below.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right. And at that time, in 2005, the way to market something was to show up, sell it, put print ads in magazines. Maybe I had an ad on the side of a bus. I sold one CD thanks to that ad. So,
really?
And yeah, you ever done that? Ever advertised on a bus?
I've advertised on radio, and I think I got the similar response, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. I remember when the lady called and said, "I saw your ad on the bus." I'm like, "What?
Really?"
So excited. But a couple of years ago, actually, it was 2 years ago, 3 weeks ago, I turned that CD set into the Singing 101 book. And now, because of the amazing internet, it's that one in light blue with the microphone and the cursive writing. That one has sold thousands of copies all over the world. It sells in the US first, Great Britain second, Australia third, and then Spain and Brazil.
Wow.
And it's just so exciting. And I deliberately wrote that book to be in the style that's very conversational, nothing intimidating about how you read it, and full of ways to immediately incorporate what I'm talking about. Because I'm sure that you've looked, as far as the print books that are out there, they are massive tomes that are filled with everything the teacher has ever learned.
Yeah.
They're overwhelming, you know?
They certainly can be, yes.
Yeah. So this is meant to be a manageable bite.
And manageable it is. And what I love about it, particularly about this particular book, is it's so accessible. It's, it's not, I think you're right in saying that in our business of singing teaching, it's appropriate that there are texts that are dense and
Yes.
really, have really sort of academic speak, and they're needed. But these texts that are highly accessible and don't require you to have a doctorate to read them are really important, and so good for people who, for example, people who are watching us now, So important, and I really encourage everyone to get a copy of those. You can get them via Nancy's website, which we just had up before, which is just there, and which is...
They end up coming through Amazon.
Sorry?
They come through Amazon.
Oh, okay, very good. But the links are all available. They can get directly to them via the links, yes?
Yeah. I'm not sure about different countries. You might have to go into Amazon and search yourself. I think all the links I've got there are US based.
Okay.
But since we last talked, I've got to show you this. I've now got in Spanish translation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Cantar.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's yeah, that's really exciting, and I hope the Spanish. I mean, isn't Spanish the second largest spoken language on the planet?
Chinese is up there somewhere.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. Certainly, there's a lot of people that speak Spanish anyway, so that's a good thing.
And I had 3 different people. Well, I had one person translate it, one person go deep on the translation, make sure she got it right, and then a third person edit and proof. So I feel really good about it, even though I can't read it.
You can't
myself.
read it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a scary thing to do as an author, isn't it? Because you can't verify you're really placing a high level of trust.
Huge.
Just so people also know the level of, I guess, expertise that you bring today. You're also the Vice President membership for NATS, are you? And you hold quite a number of sort of titles. Do you run us through them very briefly, and then I want to get into our conversation today.
I'll have to do a little bit of inventory here, but I have been serving the United States National Association of Teachers of Singing as a volunteer for a couple of decades. And at this point, that is the vice president for the entire national organization.
Wow.
And I am working on membership.
Okay.
I'm also employed by the Voice and Speech Trainers Association, which is an international association for people who teach speech to actors and professional speakers. And so for the Voice and Speech Trainers Association, also known as VOSTA, I am the director of operations, and our international conference for 2020 will be held in Sydney, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So we'll get to meet in person that summer.
We may well.
Winter.
Yeah. That's exciting.
It is. Yep.
Well, you'll have to
been
give me a bit more.
through the New York Singing Teachers Association, with something with a great, big, wonderful title. Yeah. And lots of other member of the Pan American Vocology Association. So I call myself a vocologist.
A vocologist.
Which is somebody. Well, you've had other people on your show who are vocologists. Yeah.
No, certainly we have. And that keeps you busy, right?
I got a lot going on. I have a few students too.
Yeah, and you teach on the side.
I do actually on the side. It used to be my full-time gig, but not anymore.
Okay. Let's talk. Let's dive into the subject that both of us are quite passionate about, and that is the subject that was sort of titled on today's video, and that is it's everyone's right to sing. Essentially, you have the right to sing. Why did you want to? That was born out of some stuff that we talked about via email last year. What is it about this that stirs you up?
I think it was most recently really made concrete for me by a book called The Singing Neanderthals. And in The Singing Neanderthals, the author, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, so I'm not going to bother pronouncing it, but feel free to look up The Singing Neanderthals. He discusses the origin of singing, the singing part of the brain, which is the right side of the brain, as opposed to speech, which lives in the left side of the brain. If you've ever known somebody who has had a stroke, it's not that uncommon that they might not be able to speak, but they can sing, and that's because different parts of the brain are affected differently. But in this book, The Singing Neanderthals, the author points out that singing and speech developed simultaneously, and perhaps singing was developed first because of the language of HMM. Are you familiar with this, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so the idea we could hold an entire YouTube conversation.
We could.
And so the idea that pitch is actually perhaps essential, more important, and preceded any other type of verbal communication in human language, and then evolves into singing. Singing is integral, however you say it, to who we are. And so on a much more recent basis, anybody who says to me, I wish I could sing, or I've always wanted to sing, or I can't sing, I just want to pull my hair out or slap them, because that's just wrong. Singing is part of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is the birthright of every human being to sing. And notwithstanding that there are some very rare physiological, neurological conditions that may leave a person without that facility, the vast majority of people can sing.
Yes.
And I wonder to what extent, so when we talk about that right to sing, what do you think are the hurdles to people inhabiting that right?
Have you ever been to a culture or a place where singing is done freely, where people just sing without hesitation or any type of self-consciousness?
I actually, the moment you asked me that question, I remember I was touring and I was singing at a particular church, and the service directly after us was a Pacific Islander service, and they sang in 4-part harmony. Everyone did. It was the most gloriously it was wonderful. There was no pretense, there was no guile, there was no performance. It was just what they did.
Got it. I think that, and this is totally theory, I haven't done my research, that the big change when the road took a big fork, excuse my language, was when the recording industry started to promote individuals as being the best. And I'm talking about 100 years ago. I'm talking about Elvis and everybody who preceded Elvis. I think it took away our confidence in our own singing.
Yes.
If you didn't sound like those people on the radio or on the records, you better just be quiet.
Yeah. And I think out of that came the advent of the singer, non-singer polarization, yeah?
Yes, polarization, good word.
And we see that being reinforced on a constant basis. And it is in many respects the world of the haves and the have-nots. In fact, I was having a lesson earlier this morning, and I was talking with my student about this idea of we are being expected, or we expect ourselves to be compared, to have this comparativeness to completely produced, engineered, doctored recordings. And I was saying that, and I won't use an artist in particular because that wouldn't be fair, but I was saying that an XYZ artist would probably sound as bland as I would if I recorded myself onto a smartphone and she recorded herself onto a smartphone. We'd both sound pretty boring and pretty bland, because that 15-cent microphone in the smartphone cannot compare to the $20,000 microphone in the studio that is then being filtered through production and who knows, millions of dollars worth of equipment. And yet we don't permit ourselves the right to, does that make sense?
Oh, it's huge. Yes. Absolutely. The quality of manipulation of the sound that's available in a professional recording studio. I mean, I'm sorry, even me right here talking through this beautiful microphone instead of my phone mic, hopefully, if everything's working right, makes me sound better than I would naturally.
Yeah, because it takes, I mean, you can't, it's not comparing apples with apples, and yet we constantly do place ourselves in a position, don't we, of comparing ourselves with these unrealistic expectations.
Yes, absolutely. I think that I'm almost more grateful than ever before that there are artists who have become famous who are not respectable singers. And I'm talking about Neil Young, Elvis Costello. I don't know why I'm mentioning all men, but nonetheless, people who don't hold pitch well, but storytelling is more important to them.
Yes, the narrative.
Beautiful.
And isn't that actually a return to what music was all along?
That's right.
It was a mode of storytelling.
Changing people, changing their emotions, changing their understanding of the world through delivery of a story in pitch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think that, so in acknowledging, and we have to acknowledge these hurdles exist, we can't live in denial of the real world that we now live in. TV talent shows are, it would appear, here to stay, much to my chagrin. What advice would you give someone who's really struggling in this area to have that person who may well be having a sense of struggle around their identity as a human being that has the right to sing?
Yeah, I would like to veer off to the left just a little bit.
Oh, please do.
When I was writing the Teen Girl Singing Guide, I had to do a lot of study of personalities. What type of personality becomes a solo performer versus the type of personality that becomes an ensemble singer or a duet or a trio, a small group? Now, Dan, your professional performing career, was it solo or was it with a small group?
It's mostly been solo. I was in a corporate duo for a period of time, and I was actually a founding member of a group called the 10 Tenors, but I was only with them for about 2 or 3 years. But most of my touring career, I've actually been in all of the above. Now that I think about it, my first year out of high school was touring with a band as a vocal for 10 months, living out of a suitcase. But most recently, it has been solo.
Now, isn't it fascinating when you're with a band, you're not the soloist with the accompaniment. You are one of the instruments in the band, probably the one who has to be the most showy.
Yes, one unit, yeah.
But nonetheless, you're constantly aware of the acoustic that's going on around you. Yeah?
Yeah.
And for me, it took me a while to realize that it was okay, that I didn't want to be the soloist with the spotlight on me. I wanted to be enjoying this. When we're singing harmonies with other people, it's so intimate. It's so deep. The communication is more rich than just about any other kind of communication.
Yeah.
And so the person who is, to wrap it back around, looking for their path, it's totally great if your story is shared through singing with other people or singing to small children or letting your guitar do the singing and you just provide the words. They're all great options.
Yeah. I love the fact that you orientated us to this difference in personalities, because there's actually been studies done in why in the grouping of personalities around certain instruments also. That the birds of a feather seem to flock together. Flautists seem to be all of a very similar sort of personality makeup. I mean, there are limitations to the generalizations that are made, and yet I think we see similar things in voice, don't we?
Absolutely.
And even the material that we're drawn to sing, the genre that we're drawn to singing and engaging in, and those sorts of things. So if someone identifies their genre, and they then identify the type of performance that they want to do, but they still have this imposter syndrome, if you like. How would you encourage them in moving forward?
I've had people come to me for voice lessons that I'll have them sing 2 or 3 lessons, and I realize that everything's really in pretty good shape. Everything that you're hoping that you would be able to do with your voice, you can already do. You're perhaps already better than people in the industry who are doing this, right? And just recently, I had one man come to me for lessons who said, I want to win a Grammy. And I'm like, great. He was convinced that he needed more tools from me in order to be qualified, as if it was like an accounting course where you have to learn how to do this, and this, and then somebody will hand you a Grammy. But instead, he needed to find out how to be an artist. He needed to find out how to shape and sell his story. He almost needed to go to acting school instead of voice lessons, So it comes to a point with this person who feels they have imposter syndrome. They have got to decide on what story it is that they are authentically trying to tell the world. The story that they can only tell, nobody else can tell it like they can. Even if it's the same lyrics, even if they're singing Hound Dog, I don't care. It's their story to tell. So learn how to tell that story and use the voice you've got. And if you find your voice isn't enough to carry your message, then that's when you have to look at what's going on with your voice.
I hear you directing said singer to move from an extrinsically driven locus of control where people, to win a Grammy, you would receive a lot of external accolade. But to tell your story, it has to come from an internalized locus of control where you reveal a certain level of vulnerability about yourself. How difficult do you think it is for a person to make that, to go from that externalization and to mature? And I purposefully use that word because I'm kind of revealing, I guess, in using that word, what I think might be going on there, to mature into that sense of feeling comfortable to reveal and to be vulnerable about telling their story.
Yeah. Don't you think it's experience?
Yeah.
I wanted to tell that young man that he had to go do 3 coffee shops before he could have another voice lesson.
Okay. That's good. I mean, I like coffee. And what did he have to do?
No, I'm sorry. I meant to perform in a coffee shop.
Oh, he had to perform in the coffee shop.
Sorry. Language problem.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Perform in 3 coffee shops. What are you hoping that he will experience in those coffee shops?
Well, a lot of performance anxiety. is based on the variables that come at us that we're unprepared with how to deal with. And so if you have never experienced somebody talking over your performance, or somebody dropping a chair, or some child making chaos around you, if you've never experienced a heckler, or forgetting your words, or performing when it's very cold or very hot, each one of these things has the possibility to take you out of the moment and the emotion and the change that you're trying to make, and bringing you into an awkward, self-conscious situation where you're listening to that ugly little voice that we all have. So you have to learn through experience how to deal with the variables and how to listen to what is fact rather than what's make-believe.
I want to jump in on a little part of what you just said.
Okay,
I've
said a lot.
It was all great. We all have was the little phrase that you used in amongst there. That we all have, and it can be hard for a person that is really feeling like they're experiencing this sense of imposter syndrome, or whatever you'd like to label it, to understand that everyone is having to deal with it in some way, shape, or form. How important is it, do you think, for us to understand that this is a part of the human condition, if you like, by virtue of the fact that we, in the 21st century, live in a space, as we discussed before, where those of us who would perhaps have been grouped into the non-singer grouping are trying to get over that massive canyon to include ourselves in that birthright of being a singer.
Isn't there a genre for everybody?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but who's the judge who gets to say you're not a singer? Is it your elementary school choir teacher? Because he or she was looking for something completely different than what the heavy metal producer is looking for.
Yeah.
Or it's just, the world's so much bigger than some small minds.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be that. That is spot on. It really is. It's bigger than so many small minds, and which leads me to probably the last point that I want to chat through, because I've just seen our time, and that is, I wonder how much of this, whether it be the small minds that have impressioned themselves upon us to suggest that we're not singers, or whether it is ourselves that have learnt these habits, I wonder how much of this is then born out of unconscious bias. It's something I've been looking at. My wife and I have been looking at the psychological concept of unconscious bias. I wonder how much of it do you think is driven by that?
You and I are both fortunate to live in countries where there's a strong indigenous musical heritage. Mm-hmm. If we look at that indigenous heritage, it is so different than the Western classical expectation that you and I were both raised to appreciate.
Yeah.
It doesn't take going very far inside that door to realize that we're not right, they're not right, and the aesthetic is so different. Through music, all things are possible. There are hundreds of genres of music. But I would like to go into this mindset that is not only affecting singers, but it affects athletes and performers at every level in every field. I first ran across it in a book called The Inner Game of Tennis.
The Inner Game of Tennis. I was going to mention it, so yeah, excellent.
That book has changed everything for me, and I've made dozens of my singers read it. Mm-hmm. And other teachers tell me that the inner game of this or the inner game of that is just as good and speaks to them more. This book has been around for nearly 50 years.
Yes, it's been around for quite some time, yeah.
And the field has gotten quite a bit bigger since it was written.
Yeah.
But the kernel of truth there is that we all hear that voice that tells us we're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, You need to sit down, be quiet. And so we all have to learn how to tell that voice to go away. It's not true. And listen to the facts and listen to other people that tell us what we can trust.
And can I suggest that it will, when a person makes that step and takes the opportunity to move beyond beyond that voice,
Yes.
you know, there are a lot of people like you and I who are going to encourage you to step beyond and be yourself and be vulnerable. But can I also say then that the group will want to bring you back into the fold and have you not be yourself. And
Yes.
you know, we you know, I see it a lot here on YouTube. Someone steps out, and here in Australia we call it the tall poppy syndrome. You know, the tall poppy, it rises above, you know, the poppies that it's surrounded by, and it gets snipped off because it's sitting above what, you know, it should. And so it's probably that when you do take that step, and which is such a big risk to take, one I think needs to be prepared that won't always be received with accolation.
I absolutely think you're right. For myself, this is going to sound so over the top cheesy, but it came with the realization that I am living this life right now. And when I am too old to do what I wish I'd done, I want no regrets.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to let you tell me what to do, because it's my regrets I have to live with.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's living a life with no regrets.
Yeah, that's right. Now, there is a chance you'll make a fool out of yourself. It's possible.
But we do stand the chance to create a culture together where, you know, you can be the king of fools. Like
Beautiful. And you know, the risk has paid off for me so many times.
Yeah.
Just this fall, I got to tour with a choir to Romania.
Oh, wow.
Not having any idea what the people of Romania would think of our choir or what we were doing. We took a risk. We spent our money to show up there and to give these performances. And every night after the performances, the audience was in tears. We were posing for selfies. We were giving our email addresses. They were so grateful for us sharing and giving, and we took that risk, and it paid off. If we hadn't tried, we never would have been able to give those gifts, and that has changed me forever.
And you know what? More often than not, the risk does pay off.
Usually.
Because I think the more vulnerable the performance, the more opportunity there is for communication. Singing has never been about perfect notes. It's always been about communication.
Now, I should say, though, that if you're trying to, say you go from 0 to expecting to change 1 million people's lives next month, no. Go for the 1. Go for the 2. I made a difference in that person's life today. That's the goal.
Yeah. When I released my album in 2006, I sold a few thousand albums across the country.
It was hard to market back then.
Yeah, the one comment, and I would risk the exaggeration of this next comment. The one comment that I regarding my album was from a woman. She emailed me, and this means all the more now since my wife a couple of years ago went through chemo. She said she would play my album while she was having her chemo administered, and it got her through. If all I did was create that album for that one lady, then
I've had a similar experience, Dan. I made the cheapest album ever. It was a Christmas album for my parents. That's all. But this was back when CD Baby was just getting started.
Okay.
So when I ordered the CDs, I checked the little box that said, "Do you want this digitally available?" Well, shit. If you go out there and type in my name, you're going to find this Christmas album. Why did I tell you this?
I don't know.
But the point being that every year, a dear woman named Wendy emails me and says, I put the Christmas album on in like October, and I feel so much better. I'm like, oh, if my whole life was just about that, it would be awesome.
But you took a risk.
I did.
And, you know, for Wendy, she's forever grateful that you did. And that would be our takeaway, everyone. If you're watching, take the risk. Don't allow society to tell you what you can or can't be, what you should or shouldn't sing. By all means, develop excellence around what you do, not perfection. Improve and develop yourself vocally, personally, but always put it out there. Yeah.
Sing it from your heart. Be authentic. Say the story that you think needs to be heard. Wonderful.
I wonder if we can draw a line under that and go to some questions. And I've really enjoyed today's discussion, and I was thrilled that we got to talk about this as one of the first live guest for the year, because it you know, if you were to look at it just on the surface, you would think it's a really cheesy subject, but actually it isn't. It is the really the foundation of developing as so my things cutting in and out there. Let's go to some Q&A if you're happy to stick around and have a bit more of a chat. Is that okay?
It's great.
That would be awesome. We'll do that right after this. Okay, so we've got a few questions written down here. Thanks again to Linda for collating them as we go along. I'm going to go to Jeff Munro, who has asked, how can you do pitching exercises without any musical instruments?
Dan, do you know what he means by pitching exercises?
I would think that he's perhaps thinking, well, I'm presupposing here, so Jeff, I apologise if this is not what you meant, but I would probably answer that in regards to, let's say we're doing a 5-note scale and we don't have the ability to pitch that against a piano facet.
Sure.
What
I would say
you do?
that anybody who has a smartphone is stuck.
Yeah.
There's apps that help us with our pitch. I have several apps that I'm thinking of, but I know a lot of the developers, so I'm not going to recommend one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
And if nothing else, you can use a guitar tuning app for pitch.
Yeah. And it is so important, I think, especially when you're starting out, to be able to monitor your pitch and to be able to, have that sense of relativity.
Yes.
And to be able to check yourself against. And I think, I would have said the same thing in regards to the modern smartphone. Really is your pitch pipe in your pocket.
There is one exercise that I love, but it's dependent on the keyboard, which I've got beside me. So maybe you can come up with a different way to do this. But I like to play a chord. And then noodle around vocally, improvise without that chord for 5, 10, 15 seconds. Come back and play the chord and see if it still feels like home. Have I stayed in that key is what I'm looking for. And to do that 10 times in a row is going to take you 4 minutes at the most. And your brain will start to really learn keys.
Yeah. So you're learning to sit within the harmonic of a said chord or... Yeah. Cool. Once and Future King. Some of these YouTube handles give me a smile. Question for Dr. Dan. Well, I'm going to throw it out to Nancy also. Are there any famous singers who have a reputation of always singing pitch perfect, never missing perfect notes? Harry Connick Jr. said in American Idol that Sarah Vaughan is one. Any others?
I'm not familiar with any off the top of my mind, but I have respect for anybody who recorded on reel to reel.
Yeah.
If you hear a good recording from anybody before 1995, awesome.
I would venture just to talk to the Sarah Vaughan, who was an outstanding. For those of you who don't know who Sarah Vaughan was, she's an outstanding female gospel and jazz singer, and probably mostly known for her jazz. And back then, I don't know that we can claim that she sang everything pitch perfect. I actually think it's biologically impossible for the human body to sing everything pitch perfect.
Pitch perfect is really boring.
And
have you ever tried to sing Guitar Hero, and matching those pitches is just the lamest performance ever.
And that's where I was about to head with it, is actually, I think probably one of the strengths of Sarah Vaughan was the human imperfections that she built into her singing, and that created a sense of connection with her audience. She was able to tell those, very important stories that she was telling in her singing, and she almost certainly would not have done that with perfect pitch.
Right, absolutely. If I'm having a good day, might be close to perfect pitch, but instead of if I'm having a good day, what notes were those? They were kind of sliding all over the place.
Yeah, and
that's way more effective storytelling.
And that's the thing with jazz, isn't it? I mean, jazz, you can cover a multitude of sins if you really know what you're doing. You can bend notes left, right, and center. If you miss a note and you bend it, you just repeat the same mistake next time to leave everyone believing you meant to do it the first time. So it's a lot more complex than that, everyone. I'm not suggesting jazz is a high-end art form, but so don't get caught up in the pitch perfect thing. It's not real. Now you do get. I know that, for example, Karen Carpenter had the urban myth around her as being a one-take wonder. But equally, that doesn't mean that every single time she stepped into the studio, she did it in a single take. These are these unrealistic expectations that are often built out of urban myth, that we start to build up as reality, that just make this singing thing an insurmountable goal. And let's tear these what are often unrealistic expectations down, and the pitch perfect thing is one of them.
There's a real failing with our own personal egos and being able to realistically judge what we are doing.
Yeah.
Hence the reason to have a teacher to tell you how you're doing.
Yes.
Or have a recording producer who's like, no, really, that's good enough. Now walk away.
Yeah.
Celine Dion has a reputation of taking 48 hours in the recording studio on one song, right? So you would think of anybody who could take one-take wonders, which she did with the Titanic song. That was actually a demo that she did, and it was the one that was released. But for everything else that she's done, she is working every little detail, and frankly, I doubt it needs it. I'm willing to bet that her husband, who's now passed away, was spending a lot of time saying, Celine, good enough.
It's good enough. Yeah, yeah. And how we all have to own that saying, isn't it? Good. It's good enough.
Good enough.
Yeah. Matt has asked, is it a myth that there are people who can't sing, who cannot make a pleasant sound. If you think so, you haven't met my dad. He will even be the first to tell you he can't carry a tune.
Well, part of that comes from, when did you stop singing? If you were 4 years old and somebody told you to stop singing, it's very possible that you have lacked the opportunity to develop the neurology. And that's part of the tragedy. We can all sing from birth.
Yeah. And there is, I can't remember the exact statistic around the Australian population, because I did look it up once, of people who are clinically tone deaf, and it's something like 0.0004%. It's a very, very small group of people, and it's basically the colour blindness of the ear. A person who is clinically tone deaf cannot tell the difference between someone speaking happy birthday and someone singing happy birthday. There is no tone modulation at all detectable by the ear. That is a very, very rare condition, and it would be horrible to have that. Be even more horrible to not have any hearing at all, it must be said. But equally, I think it's important, that we do away with this myth of, often people who have taken on this ownership of I'm a non-singer will then place the second ownership incorrectly of saying I'm tone deaf. It is highly unlikely that you are clinically tone deaf.
If you were tone deaf, you wouldn't be able to tell if I was asking a question or giving an answer.
Yeah. And this is one of the challenges of that condition. And again, very, very few people actually have that issue. Nancy, this is from Bartek, and we're going to finish up after two more questions. I'm going to give one more question to Bartek, and I'm going to give a question to John. Bartek asks, Nancy, have you ever had a student you stopped working with because of his or her inability to learn or due to lack of progress?
One. In 22 years. And it was a man who, much like we're talking about, he worked and worked and worked at trying to match pitch, and he was unable to do so. So I would say, of the hundreds, perhaps even thousands or more students that I've worked with, there has been one. We tried, and honestly, he had a karaoke channel, and he decided just doing his karaoke channel and not bother with lessons anymore. I was proud of him.
Good. I would add, Bartek, that I too have had students. I can count in. This is my 23rd year of teaching. I can count on one hand in that period of time the singers that I've had to kindly recommend that they don't have lessons with me any longer. And it never had anything to do with their voice. It always had something to do with their attitude. They were, and this has always been peculiar to me, but essentially they came with an unteachable attitude.
That's right.
And when that's the case, I can't, it always strikes me as weird, because you're paying me money to basically tell me you don't want to listen to me. But
there's one student that I'm supremely thrilled with. If I don't teach anybody else besides Greg, I would die a happy one. Greg was a software programmer in his 50s for the phone company. And he went to a church, and he just had always wanted to sing in the choir, but he couldn't match pitch. And for 2 years, he came every week. It'd be a matter of me playing a note on the keyboard and him trying to match it, and he couldn't, so I would sing it and he would try to match it, and we worked at it week after week for 2 years, and he got to the point where he could sing 3 jazz songs in a recital. He joined a choir, his church choir, so as long as he had a baritone on either side of him, he could sing what they were singing, and he achieved his goal.
I'm often asked, and I know that you would be too, Nancy, about who are the famous people you've taught? I want to respond with, because I've got similar stories about my Gregs, and they're the people I want to tell people about. I don't want to tell people about celebrities. Firstly, because celebrities really prize their privacy.
Anonymity. Or their privacy, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I get more thrill out of teaching the Gregs. Yeah. Every day of the week I get more thrill out of teaching the Gregs. Because the distance they travel is so much greater often. Yeah, I'm really energized by the Gregs as well. One last question. This comes from John, and he says, how do you get over the nervousness of open mics or open jams with people you don't know, especially where the solos and instrumental breaks are? I go to open mics for stage presence and experience, but I don't play an instrument, so rely on others. It can be intimidating.
It sounds like you're talking about variables, John. It sounds like you're talking about not knowing what's going to happen next. And you have to be prepared for anything. That's going to cause us all anxiety. If you were playing tennis, back to the inner game of tennis, and you didn't know if the ball was going to come from the left, right, or down center, you'd be, So I don't blame you. What do you think, Dan?
Do you know what? I think it is a scary thing to step up onto a stage with musicians that you don't know. I mean, last night I was leading worship at my church, and we were introducing a new song, and it was a song that I had not had time to really look at. And so essentially the time that we presented it to the congregation was literally my second time of singing it through. Now that is flying by the seat of your pants, let me tell you. And but we got to the end of it. My daughter was in the congregation smiling like a Cheshire cat at me because I missaid some of the words, which completely changed the meaning. and but we had some fun with it. At the end of the day, no one died. Everything's fine.
For me, John, that was the biggest part of it, was realizing it's not about me.
Yeah.
It might not go fine. It's the moment.
Yeah.
It's not that important. It'll go away.
And I think people actually really enjoy the inaccuracy sometimes. If you do stuff up and go, I mean, like my daughter, she was getting a real kick out of the fact that her dad was getting it all wrong. And that's okay. That's actually can be part of the fun. Now I do acknowledge, and I do want to throw this because I'm not trying to trivialize your experience, John. It can be very. I've got 25 years of performance experience where I can sort of dust myself off and keep going. But the reason I'm able to do that is because I know nothing terrible happens. When I make mistakes, and I make them regularly. My wife believes I've made up a completely new skill. I developed this skill years ago for creating lyrics on the spot that seem to make sense, because my ability to remember lyrics is the bane of my vocal career.
Terrible. I
am a shocker. But you get to the end and nothing, it's all good. It's just singing, isn't it?
And honestly, the control of pitch, the emotions, touching the people in the room is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't let anything take your mind off of that, then you've succeeded in your purpose.
Absolutely. It has been so good to spend the last hour with you.
I love this.
I've really enjoyed our chat, and I hope that we can do it again. Can I just once again remind people of the books
Thank you.
for people to jump on and grab their copies via the information below, and this one as well. This is cool, everyone. Have a look at this. This is such a simple idea. And I don't mean that
stupid simple.
And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean,
It's
how important are paper clips in our world? Yet it's such a simple idea, yet it's so important. This book here is, you know, a practice journal, and it's all there for you. Just fantastic. It's the sort of thing that I wish I had thought of, to be honest.
You still can. I don't mind competition.
It's one of those. Oh no, you're well ahead. Let me. I wonder if you might just say goodbye, and I'll wrap up the show, if that's okay.
It's been great being here. Thank you for bringing me into your world. Thank you to all of Dan's friends and fans who are out there and joined us tonight. It was a pleasure to get to talk to you all tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nancy. It has been such a pleasure to have Nancy on the show. Don't we have some amazing people onto our live hangouts on a Monday? It is a real privilege to have had her, and I'm hoping that we might get the chance to invite her back in the future. I hope you've enjoyed today's show like I have. If you have, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Perhaps take a moment to share it with friends and family who are into singing, because I think they'll find it a real encouragement as we've talked through the singer's identity and having that right to sing. In next week, it'll just be me. I hope you still tune in. The week after that, so in 2 weeks' time, exciting, we are going to be having Justin Stoney from New York Vocal Coaching join us. I met up with Justin online a few weeks back, and this guy, very, very similar to Nancy, has this wonderful heart to see people develop the ability to express themselves in song. As you know, he's got a great channel here on YouTube, New York Vocal Coaching, and it's going gangbusters. It deserves to, because his content is exceptional. So I hope you tune in then, because it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it is Justin's very first time ever doing a collaboration on YouTube, which I'm really tickled by, that he has given us the privilege of being the first that he's done something like that with. So in 2 weeks' time, make sure you come back and join us for that live show. I also hope to see you next week, Australian Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. on a Monday. Until then, I very much look forward to seeing you again here on the channel and over in the Facebook community page, Voice Essentials community. I look forward to seeing you there. I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.